This is really the heart of Shunya, that nothing in existence can ever function as if it's an independent entity of its own.
But in reality, is my consciousness localized to the focal point right now, or is it
right now?
Is it everything right now in the room?
Right now, it's everything, but you may not realize that.
So I am that. But why is it?
It feels like it's localized.
But why? How is the ego making it feel so localized?
But there is no ego.
So why does it feel localized?
I'll tell you why. Because of the narrowness of one's perception. The example I like to give for it is it's just like the clouds which are obstructing the light of the sun. The light of the sun in reality is emanating its energy 360 degrees without any preferences at all. It nourishes both the so-called good man and the so-called bad man. It nourishes both weeds and flowers alike. And yet, it does not care in the least who is nourished and who's not nourished by it. That's the power of the sun. So that energy is already there, but it's just obstructed by various coverings of the mind. And that's really the major problem. It's the conditioning of the mind. We want to turn the mind into a vehicle so that it can be receptive to the light of pure awareness. And that's really mainly what's involved in our work. It's a process of gradual mental purification. Your ego is a bit like this. Imagine your consciousness is like boundless light. The ego takes a fragment of that boundless light and creates one ray of light.
Yeah, like a tunnel kind of.
Exactly. And just because of the limits of one's perception, and in fact, it's also very much physical. It's very much a physical problem as well.
What? You mean because of the senses?
Because the brain has to accommodate, it has to have pathways in the brain which are actually accommodating for a new kind of experience. So it has to restructure itself to allow certain new experiences to arise in the first place even. Otherwise, the brain, according to its old conditioning, it naturally is very resistant to change.
But how can, so is the experience...
This is a survival machine here.
Yeah.
And if you're going to look at this body as a survival machine, the most important thing in this machine is to maintain the status quo, to maintain the force of habit. That's exactly why human beings are such habitual creatures.
It's instinct. But...
Yes. Millions and millions of years of instinctive impulses. This has created a narrowness in one's perception. So, in one way, it's karma.
But so this experience of the loss of the tunnel is the light ray. So the loss of that tunnel and the expansion of what you really are.
Well, hold on. There's no expansion of what you really are, but continue.
No, sorry. I mean, let's say, because I know we talked about Jnana Yoga, and you said that it's possible for one to reach samadhi through purely the intellect. How does that work compared to purification of the mind and the body and all that?
Jnana Yoga also involves purification of the mind.
Of the thoughts, or is it changing the way you think?
It is creating a firm discrimination of the intellect and the mind, not in terms of thinking or contemplating about what you are. To actually, through your intellect, examine the content of your experience and realize what you're not. The term for it is neti, not this, not this. So forget completely about where to go. Imagine you're traveling through the wilderness completely blind. You don't know where to go. You must get a feel for where to go. So for that, the strategy is understand more and more about what you are not, and take that to its ultimate depth. And then what you are will naturally reveal itself. You don't even have to think about it.
So what's the ultimate depth of?
The strategy is, I'm not the body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the mind. Let's go deeper. Let's examine the contents of the mind. I am not my thought process. I'm not my emotion. I am not what I see, what I hear, what I smell, what I taste, what I touch. I can't be this form of the body, obviously, because this body is itself supported by more fundamental realities, the atoms which consist of this body. Of course, this thing you're calling a human being is a combination of many elements together. Your Buddha nature, combined with the laws of physics, combined with this conditioning of the body, combined with the mind, combined with even the condition of the galaxy, the solar system, the stars, the planets, the sun, the moon, all of it is reflected right here. It is actually true that the human being is, as it has said, a microcosm in the macrocosm. Because, as we say, and this is so essential to Shunya, once again, this system is not operating separately. So from the understanding of Shunya, if you even look at a mere flower, you're not looking at the flower. You're looking at a manifestation of the entire cosmos. Because that's what's involved in actually preserving this flower. There was a story about the life of Gautama Buddha, which is said to be the origins of the Zen teaching. It's called the Flower Sermon.
Yeah.
So one day the disciples, they were gathered together as an assembly, waiting to receive Gautama Buddha. And they were waiting, time was passing by. Finally he arrives, he walks very silently and sits on his seat. And simply sits in silence. Time continues moving forward. And still he remains in silence. This caused confusion among the disciples. Why is he waiting for all this time? Okay, perhaps he's contemplating about what he's going to say. Or maybe this is a special day, he's in a particular kind of samadhi. But what's going on here? And he was like a statue. Suddenly he just bends over, he picks up a flower, and he holds it towards the assembly. This created mass confusion among the disciples. What's the meaning of this gesture? We're sitting, waiting and waiting and waiting. Obviously he knows that we are here, and now he just holds up a flower towards the assembly. We were waiting to hear an extensive discourse about meditation, the middle path, the eightfold, the noble truths. We were waiting to hear all the realizations of a Buddha, but now he's just holding up a flower. But one disciple who was there in the assembly got the point. His name was Mahakasyapa. He saw the flower, he smiled very gently, and in that moment he was instantaneously realized. A silence that is beyond understanding. This is the realization of a Buddha. And that silence, the closest thing to it is, as I've described, it is the nature of your consciousness. Oh. To transcend the illusion of duality. All this Kundalini stuff has no value at all if it's not a stepping stone towards transcending the dualism in your experience.